Good evening, and everyone. I'd like to now call to order the Concord Township Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. And the first and probably the biggest item on our agenda tonight is the continuation of the public hearing for zoning amendment application number 0719-2 by Ralph Victor Construction Incorporated, requesting a zoning map amendment for current permanent parcel number 08-A-0-1-8-0-0-025-0 and 08-A-0-0-0-003-0, whose address is 10811 Prouty Road, and being about 25.57 acres of land from the current zoning district of R1 residential to R3 residential. And if you'll recall, back several months ago when we began this journey on this property, we were talking about a possible rezoning from R1 to R4. That's been changed, and the new request is to change to R3. And there is a difference between R4 and R3. And before I open the hearing, I thought I'd read out of the zoning regulations for Concord what R3 means and what it is, so that everybody has an understanding. But basically, the purpose of the R3 residential district is to provide for a limited amount of alternative housing types to the traditional single-family dwellings in the township. It's the intent of this district to allow for both multifamily and single-family clustered dwellings in locations that meet the following criteria in conformance with the comprehensive plan. If you recall, we have a comprehensive plan for the township, and this was developed as part of that. Number one, as transitional land use between areas currently zoned R1 residential and non-residential areas. Item two, in areas adjacent to major highways such as Interstate 90, of course in this case it would be State Route 44. And item three, or number three, in locations that are currently zoned R1 residential and where low density residential is not likely to develop because of a locational or site conditions. So those are the three conditions. It's further intended that such districts be located so as to minimize their impact on existing low-density residential developments through the regulation of size, location, and density of units, and the application of appropriate landscaping and buffer areas with adequate public services available to support the density. And two of the requirements that are in here, there are other little things that are worded in here, but one of the requirements, if this would ever become an R3 district, it would require a 50-foot buffer on the east next to the property on Auburn Ridge. So behind the property line, it would require a 50-foot buffer all the way back that has to be planted in grass and trees and landscaping for privacy. And that would also reduce the amount of developable land because that buffer can't be developed on. You can't build anything on that buffer. It also requires that there be both public water and public sewers available to the property. So having said that, that's the definition in our zoning requirements of R3. So at this point in time, I'm going to reopen the public hearing because if you'll recall, we closed it, so we reopen it at a later date. So tonight I'm going to reopen it. So the public hearing is now reopened on this property. And before I have individual residents that might like to speak, who's here to represent the developer? Could you speak? State your name and... Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Right before, sorry, I apologize to interrupt. I just wanted to correct one statement you made at the beginning of the meeting. The application has always been the request to rezone to R3. There was never an application to rezone to R4.
The first one was R4, was it?
No. When we had the hearing in September, it was a request to rezone to R3. At the time, the applicant had requested to continue it so they could come back with some additional information to address some of the issues that were brought up at the public
My mistake
hearing.
then, because I thought, sure, the first time we discussed it was R4. But in any case, everyone has a clear understanding of what R3 is. And could you state your name and address, please?
My name's Todd Victor from Ralph Victor Construction at 7685 Snowberry Court, Mentor.
Okay. And Todd, you were requesting additional time to fill us in on your plans for this property. Should it be approved?
Right. Should I start from Bill Brooks not continuing on with what he was wanting to do there due to the vibe that he got from the neighbors and everybody that was involved. So he didn't want to continue with what he wanted to do. So we switched to we wanted to do the R3 in single family, smaller lots, 60 by 150. And this will allow us to keep the buffer on the freeway, on 44 and against other people's property, the 50-foot buffer, and build mounds and
Okay.
plant some trees.
Are
on
these
there, so.
cluster homes, condominiums?
They'll be like single family, only on smaller
Okay,
land.
and you're thinking how many you're allowed, I believe 8 an acre is the
Uh,
maximum,
Right, but
is that correct?
we were,
6?
yeah, we
For
have
a
the new,
freestanding, single-family cluster dwelling, it's a maximum of 6 per acre.
6 per acre, okay. And that's
So-
your intent?
no, we'll be under that. We have 65 laid out, but we'd like to do 60,
So you're talking
anywhere between 60 to 65.
50 to 65 units,
Right,
single family,
right, 60 to 65.
okay.
And I have the new map if you want
Mhm.
to see what we laid out, if you guys want to see these.
Yeah,
Sure.
If you have it, we'd like to. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a bigger one if you want to see the bigger one also.
Well, we can share up here too.
I don't have a forward. Probably get, you know, Marty, if you don't mind in the conference room in there, there's like a board that we can get behind us. So you can-
That's 4 acre lots. Less than 4 acre lots. Well, some of them. And what size? I think. Yeah, well, this is, I don't know what those are, but this is .22 acres, .24, .21,
See it a little, he's getting it more though.
.36, .39,
Does that work?
.43. But one of these lots over here, on Auburn, Auburn Ridge,
Auburn Ridge is the street over there,
what size lots are
2 acre lots.
2 acre?
There's about 12 houses.
You're gonna have to wait. We'll have public questions later, okay? If you wanna face it toward the board at any point too, like, I don't know how you want, during the public exam.
Okay. So we had the 50-foot buffer laid out around the edges. And we were thinking on putting a walking path around the open area down where we can't put anything.
Up by the pond, the stormwater?
Right,
Is that what you mean?
stormwater.
Okay.
Is the grading area, is that water? Is that runoff or is that a stream or what?
That's the ravine and everything goes into that and then it gets bigger as it gets farther down.
Okay.
Now, the question becomes, I know you have water off of Prouty Road. Do you have sewer access yet?
We have approval for a pump station if it's all one owner.
Okay. Pump bumped it to where, Auburn Road?
to Auburn Road, yes.
You have written approval of that?
No, not written approval,
Okay.
but, well, we have an email.
Mhm.
If it's one entity, we can do a pump station.
Where would the pump station go?
We'll probably eliminate it could go right down, I can't, down right here would be a
Oh,
good
okay.
spot for
Down
it.
by the stormwater pond?
Right. That's the low point anyway of the subdivision. And down on the other end would be the best place for the storm. That's another lowest area of the land.
So these are under a quarter-acre lots?
Some of them are over a quarter acre.
But most of them are under.
So you would have both sanitary and storm sewers in here?
Yes.
Okay.
We were thinking on 5 and 10-foot sidelines, so you would be able to build a 45-foot wide house there.
What
It's,
would be your estimated square footage of these homes?
Anywhere probably from about 16 to 3,000 probably.
Okay.
From what we're building over there in Quail Hollow, we have one of those are 3,100 square feet. So, can you believe that?
Would these be similar to High Grove Village?
Yeah, we would simulate to probably try and do similar to that. We would have more room in between the houses, we would have 5 feet more between.
Okay.
And then they'll have bigger backyards too.
Mhm. Okay. Any questions from up here before
So there's one egress and one ingress, right?
I, two, here and here?
2 entranceways.
Two cul-de-sacs.
Mhm.
The fire department requires to have 2 access to a
So
development.
this would comply with the fire codes?
Right.
Anything else from up here?
Not at the present time.
Okay, we'll
I
have more.
have a question.
Okay.
Did you lay this out as an R1? Did you do just out of curiosity, did you do a
Yes,
plat? What would you come out with?
40,
About 40 units?
yeah, 40 half
That's right
acre.
here.
Okay.
40 half-acre lots.
Right,
Mhm. So the difference would be 20 to 25 additional dwellings
right.
between R1 and R3, the way you have this.
And we can limit it to what we laid out, so we can't build any more units than, change something after it was approved.
Mhm.
Because I know we're allowed up to 6,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
units with that zoning,
Yeah, you could, 6 per acre.
right.
I do have a question. We brought this up initially, there's gonna be senior citizens living. Is that correct?
Not any longer, I don't think.
Not any longer,
was the
Not
original.
anymore.
right.
Okay,
That was the plan for Bill Brooks when he was in here.
right. So that's not the intent anymore.
No, not
Okay.
really.
And those would have been rental units, correct?
Right,
And these are owned units.
These are gonna be
probably.
owned,
So this is
yeah.
a total different
right,
scenario than what we were looking at in September.
right.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm gonna let the residents speak. Is there anything else, Mr. Victor, you'd like to say at this point?
No,
Okay.
I think that's
All right,
it.
thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, I'd like to get anybody that would like to speak for or against this proposal, give you an opportunity to come to the microphone. And I'll start over on this side over the room over here, the first row. Anybody there would like to come up and speak?
I need to see this. There you go. Trying to get it away, it's blocking all of our board members. Yeah, maybe move it over here or something.
Just step up and state your name and address, please. And
Thanks, Maureen.
any questions are fair game as well.
My name's Hal Sekula. I live at 6989 Auburn Ridge Drive for 17 years now. And first, I'd like to ask Mr. Victor a question. What access
No,
do you have to
no.
Auburn Road?
Sir,
We're
you
gonna,
have to direct it to the board.
yeah,
not-
the question comes up here and
Well, I want to know.
Okay.
At the last meeting I was at here, I asked specifically what access is it going to have for sanitary sewer,
okay,
and I didn't hear that. And is
fair enough.
okay.
And that's one thing I think we as a board would like to see as well, some proof of access to the sewer that's approved and signed. Because this can't become R3 property without sewer access, formal sewer access.
And
So-
it's right now it's landlocked
Okay.
as far as sewer is concerned.
And we understand, and he's got to have that to get an R3. So,
Okay. 17 years ago, we built our house in Concord, our dream home. And we wanted to live in Concord because we believed that they wanted, what they say in Concord is, we want to be this country atmosphere, right? Country without being in the country. So we bought our 2-acre lot. Most of the people on our street put in septic tanks. I happen to be lucky enough that Auburn Road had put the sewer in at the same time I was building, so I got that. But besides the fact that we were looking at a place to live that's not in the city. And when you're looking at 65 homes all compacted right next door to you, ask yourself that question, do you want to live next to that? I don't, and my wife doesn't, and most everybody I've talked to. So my question is, are we going to do this for the citizens of Concord? Or are we going to do this because somebody is, and profit's not a dirty word, but in the right terms? And this isn't the right terms. You can't have it both ways. And as far as that many homes that close by, it's just going to be a sea of rooftops. I don't care about the mound and that. We're not blind. It's not going to be 20 foot tall. But, you know, are you guys up here and gal going to sit here and decide on the citizens? Or on somebody who would like to make a profit?
well, we have to decide on the zoning regulations. Would you be happier with 40 houses over there?
If it's R1, I'll go with that.
But there'd be 40 houses there.
I'm not, you know, that's what, I don't know how it was originally, you know, it was a horse farm for many decades. How it originally got to be R1 in the first place, because when we built, we had to have 2 acres because there's no access to a sewer. Why isn't this 2 acres? Because they don't have access to a sewer. As far as I know now, maybe Mr. Victor can tell us.
Okay.
But,
All right.
all right.
Very good.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Anybody else in that row?
Hi, I'm Jack Miley, and I live at 6975 Auburn Ridge Drive. Several points I need to make clear here. Supporting what Hal said about our acreage in our neighborhoods. I think when we all came out there with the perception that that's what we were going to have, that's appropriate. The development down by Drug Mart, there's nothing appropriate about that. I said that in my campaign when I ran for trustee. The present elected officials in this community and the past elected officials in this community all said they were going to support semi-rural development in Concord. That's what we expect, not high density. There's nothing about that that's appropriate for this location, especially safety and infrastructure in that neighborhood. We have blinking lights, not stop lights, at Prouty and Auburn. We have school, transportation, and traffic for 9 months out of the year. On the other end, you got Prouty Road Hill, and that gets backed up if you go there at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, clear down into the dip and halfway back up, so when you come around that curve, you have to slam on your brakes because there's cars sitting down there for the light. We don't need another 120 or 200 cars on that street. So the infrastructure doesn't support it. The safety in the area doesn't support it. And the present zoning right now doesn't support it. I've said from the start, if it ends up on half-acre lots, it is what it is. I don't like it. It's still not fair to us that pay very high taxes and have to put in septic systems and go by those rules. But I understand progress. I still am encouraging that you use some common sense. This area is not conducive to a high-density zoning area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir, in the second row?
I'll sit back.
Anything?
Hi, my name is Mike Hammer. I live at 6980 Auburn Ridge. I have a couple questions, if we could try and clarify. One was, it was stated that the approval for a pump station, as long as it was one owner, what, of one house?
No, I assume it's the developer.
So, moving past that, he's gonna own the entire development?
He's gonna develop it. He won't own it.
But he can get an approval, that's it, just
As
as
a
long as
developer,
it's one
yeah.
owner.
I believe that's
There's
correct.
two parcels,
That's correct.
there's two parcels involved.
Yeah, the
Okay.
As long
association.
as there's with the two parcels, as long as there's one owner, then he's got the ability to get but once he builds the houses and sells them,
Then it, okay. Okay. And in echoing my neighbors, I agree. High-density homes, I honestly feel that originally when it was proposing with seniors, with, not as much traffic, now you're adding homes, you're way out of line with the traffic now. I think the other original proposal would have been better. I mean, not better, but traffic-wise.
I think that was 120 units, though.
Well, still, but I do agree with the R1. I understand there'd be 40 houses. Man has allowed to do what he wants to do with his property as long as it's within realm. Yes, I agree. I think it would bring in major safety concerns, more traffic, obviously, home values on our end. It's gonna affect that no matter what anybody says. I guess that's the question I had, was about the pump. And in attending, I understand you gave that with R3 there are must-be's. I attended some planning commission meetings where they stated also too with R3 that, which kind of stuck in my mind, was that once it's zoned R3, they don't have to do what they propose.
But they would have to come back with a site plan,
I understand that.
and that can be.
And
turned
I'm just
around.
going off words before that,
No.
you guys have been burned before on R3.
But R3
So
does
keep that in mind.
require
I
a site
understand
plan,
that.
so he would have to come to us with a formal site plan And we would have to approve it or reject it.
Okay. And like I said, I'm just echoing my other neighbors. I would like to see it stay R1. I think that's a wrong place for that kind of development.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Next to Mr. Miley would,
Good evening, my name's Matt Rhodes. I live at 10454 Prouty Road. That is close to the Morley Prouty light at the top of the hill as you come up heading south. In the interest of reducing redundancy, I'd like to just say that I agree with all the folks who've come up here and expressed their concerns. I would be on board with an R1 zoning status. But I do have concerns, especially living in that portion of Prouty Road, with the amount of traffic that would be increased with 60-plus units coming in. You're looking at 120 additional cars traveling each day throughout that portion, and I don't feel as though the roads would support that amount of traffic in that portion. So,
okay, thank you.
that's all. Thank you.
Next row, anybody there? We're good back there? Okay. Vanessa, did you have any? Okay, all right, I'll start with the second row over here then. Gentlemen? Sir? Yeah, please. Your row.
Hi, my name is Michael Wooden. I live at 211 Prouty Road, and not to be redundant also. They make a good point. It should stay R1. If it is Dolan's R3, sounds good, put 65 units for owner occupied. In the September meeting, when they said it was going to be rental units, that's no good. And he compared it to Areas Way and Lockwood Ridge. Those are all owner occupied. It's nothing to do the same thing. So if it is changed to R3 and he doesn't stick with this, then it's going to, what if he wants to come up with something different? We don't want rental units there. And the traffic is one thing. I've been in Concord now 15 years. I moved here for semi-rural. My neighbors, I always hear this master plan. 3 of my neighbors are elderly, could make it here tonight. Lawrence Creecraft for 11169 Prouty Road. Dick and Judy Carlisle, Charles and Ruth Ann Schultz. I take care of my neighbors. They're elderly, so the master plan sounds good, but we don't need anything in there for a residential for elderly. We want it, if it has to stay R1, it should stay R1. To me, the zoning committee, you should have an interest of the Concord citizens. I understand developers that are to make money. Lockwood Ridge has looked good. Bridge Creek Estates is down from us. I see them all the time. Gem Construction's building new houses down there, but it's got to stay R1 because this 65 units, they're right. It's just going to be too close and too clustered. And going down that road now, it's just, you can't do it. It's just, it's ridiculous. You go down that hill, you add 65 more houses and people coming in there. And number one, Concord doesn't take care of Prouty Road. It's the county. So I got to go to the end of my driveway in winter and see a Concord plow truck come by with its plow on. I mean, really, Concord doesn't do anything for us on Prouty. The county clears our ditches, does the road. What do they do for us? So we're asking the citizens, keep it R1, not R3. We do not want R3. That's why all these people are here today. So I don't want to get upset, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next row, anybody in that row?
Louise Burkhart, 7041 Auburn Road. I've been a resident for 40 years. I've seen Lockwood go in. I've seen Sean Fallion's property be done wrong, first time, second time. I've seen Water Oaks and all these other places come in. Frankly, I'm sick of it. I moved there to be in the country. I wanted to be in a place that were more horses than people, which when I moved there, it basically was. Now, you can't have horses in Concord anymore, basically, unless you have someplace like Kettlebrick, where you've got enough land and enough acreage. And this was a farming community, and it no longer is, and I am totally against it being anything but R1, and I'm even against it being developed as single-family homes, but there's nothing I can do about that. I also want to know if whatever goes in there, are we gonna have to have a traffic light now because I can't even get out of my driveway? I've had to put a turnaround in because about 20 years ago, I couldn't get out of my driveway backing out, so I have to turn around in my yard so that I can pull out of my driveway. If you put another 40 houses in there, that intersection, which is high accident to begin with, is gonna be a dead zone with accidents because nobody knows how to use a four-way stop when they come in from the city. They think, you know, okay, it's my turn, I can go. Nobody stops and waits. You can sit there at a four-way stop and you've got two cars moving at the same time. That's not a four-way stop. It's one person goes at a time. So I'm looking at, okay, now we're gonna have traffic lights there. Who's gonna maintain those and so forth? Then they're gonna want more city lights. Where's it stop? I know a lot of people would have liked to have come here tonight, but couldn't because of their age or what have you. I'm lucky I still have my health, but I maintain my property on my own. I'm 72 years old, and I'm tired of fighting over having to deal with all the traffic that I've got now, all the litter I have to clean up out of my ditch every single day from people just throwing stuff everywhere. I just can't see how our community can support even another 40 homes, much less 65. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from that road? Sure, anybody? Okay, the last row, sir? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you.
Don Peters, 10725
Sorry.
Rowdy Road.
Okay.
I concur with what everyone else here is saying. I've lived there since the house was built in 2015. I just bought the lot next door. If the farm next to me would sell the 3.5 acres that's next to that, I'd buy that too, because I don't want people right up against me. I lived in Cleveland, where I couldn't put my pickup truck in the driveway because the houses were so close together. I moved here with my wife because we wanted to live in a low-density area where we had land, where we could talk to our neighbors and everything. And like they said too, I was gonna bring that up too, my ditches are filled with trash all the time. People just drive down the road and throw stuff in the ditches. The stupid phone book people throw their phone books in the ditches. And what does that do? That just clogs up the drains. During rush hour, the traffic can back up from the Morley light past my house now, as it is. At least when they proposed the 55 and older, most of those people probably wouldn't be working. Now, if you're opening up to everybody, I have a turnaround driveway. My driveway's U-shaped. I probably still wouldn't be able to get out of my driveway. Because on one side, I can't even see traffic coming from over the bridge. So even this half-acre lots or whatever it is, I think that's, you know, it is what it's gonna be, but there's no way there should be that many properties on that farm. You know, just have to put in my 2 cents worth, let you guys know how I feel about it.
Thank you. Now, anybody else? Okay, Vanessa?
Vanessa Pesic, 11705 Cali Court. I'd like to go back to the R3 and the purposes that you stated at the beginning, and one, as a transitional land use between areas currently zoned R1 and non-residential areas. This lot does not present that kind of a problem or concern.
Well, it
It's
does
all
abut
R1.
It does abut an R1, and it does transition to the freeway.
Once you go over the freeway, there's no access to the freeway. When you go over the freeway, it's all R1 as well. So it's R1 all the way around it, other than a street that runs next to it. That is correct. The second point is in areas adjacent to a major highway which it is next to 44, not 290, but there's no access to 90, such as, you know, in Vista Parks or whatever, Capitol Parkway, where you could easily get onto 44 and then 90, okay? And then the third, locations that are currently zoned R1 and where low-density residential is not likely to develop because of location or site conditions. Again, this would not be appropriate for this area. This application is not appropriate because it can be developed. Auburn Ridge is a perfect example. The homes on either side of Prouty, it can easily be developed in regular R1. So 2 of the 3 purposes of R3 do not apply to this property. The second thing is the traffic, and realizing that this, if it's rezoned, can become 8 units per acre. Even though the last one showed 6, this pretty picture here shows 6 units per acre, whatever, but again, they're pretty pictures. You're not dealing in a site plan review, you're not dealing with the PUD, you're looking at rezoning a piece of property to R3, which allows up to 8 homes per acre. And that's what you need to look at, is up to 8 homes per acre. And at 8 homes per acre, the Federal Highway Administration studies tell you that each unit has 8 car trips per home. And so you take 8 times maybe 90% or 80% of the 25 acres, and you can have 1,200 car trips per day for that 25 and a half acres. Going up to Morley Road and that intersection with Pine Hill and Morley, which is a terribly dangerous intersection, terribly dangerous, as well as Auburn with just the stop signs, as well as people trying to get from Concord Hamden, trying to get up to the freeway and having to have all the traffic flow up off Auburn. So for a lot of reasons, it doesn't seem that this is an appropriate place to have R3. It should be zoned and stay as is, which is R1. And I think this whole show that we've had from September, where we're going to put in senior homes because it's so critical that we have this for senior homes, to now all of a sudden we get to the meeting only to find out that we're completely changed to single-family homes that are going to be close together, shows the real perils of this kind of rezoning to R3. Because regardless of what pretty pictures you have, you may end up with 8 homes per acre. You do get a chance to review the site plan, but the site plan, if it conforms to zoning at 8 homes per acre, you can't go back and say, no, we only want 6. If the site plan is accurate and it has a correct sewer and it has a correct water and it has a detention pond and all of the rest, you'll need to say yes, or it'll be takings and you'll be taken to court. So it really isn't appropriate to have this property rezoned. And just as in September, when you asked for the other pretty pictures for when it was supposed to be senior homes, and now it's something different, your attorney, I'm not quite sure why they're not here today, but you know, your attorney was really clear. And she said, I do want to clarify a couple points. The only thing before the Zoning Commission tonight is an application to rezone from R1 to R3, not to approve any senior housing development, or any development for that matter, such as another pretty picture in front of you, which is completely different from what it was before. And you all said, right, right, right. She said, so regardless of what you're submitting, The gentleman is correct. If it's rezoned to R3, they're not locked into that. So tonight's public hearing is only from R1 to R3. So I want you to be armed with that before you make this decision to reopen it, regardless of what is submitted. So I would ask that you heed your legal counsel's advice and not approve this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, you can.
Restate.
Yes.
Yeah, could you please?
Cal Sekula, 6989 Auburn Ridge Drive. And she reminded me of something, and now it's not even here, but the question about access to septic, or not septic, but sewer line. I still want that clarified before we can go away
I
tonight.
understand.
And the the whole thing is, if it's somewhere else where it was like next to a whole bunch of other R3 zone areas that had multifamily homes, or in this case, single family, but up to 8, but 6 per acre, whatever, then, yeah, well, go ahead. But this whole area is R1. From Auburn Road all the way down to the State Route 84. So where are we gonna, how can we approve something that is not?
Well, the only comment I'd have on that is if you look at Areas Way, that's R3, everything around it is R1, everywhere.
But
just saying.
Two
Okay.
wrongs don't make a right, or one wrong doesn't make a right. But, all
We don't know
right,
that
thanks.
that's wrong, but, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other comments? If not, I'd like to read into the record, I did get an email at 5:12 PM this evening from Cheryl and Dan Gillespie at 11239 Prouty Road. And her comment just said, my husband and I are unable to attend the zoning commission tonight, but would like to go on record as being opposed to the rezoning of this parcel from R1 to R3, the old horse farm on Prouty Road. So I do have that in hand. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, that's my neighbor, left of me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, understand, so everyone's clear here too, the zoning commission, we're a recommending body, so whatever we decide tonight, if we decide not to change or in favor of a change, it still has to go to the trustees and they can overrule us either way. Just so everyone's clear on that. We're not zoning appeals, we're a recommending body here, so we can be overruled, so just so you're aware of that. But comments on the board?
None here.
I guess the comments I would make, one of the things that was important, and I was part of the comprehensive planning that we've done here in the township, and one of the things that we felt was important in the comprehensive plan was looking at Concord. Everyone likes to look at Concord at what it used to be. I lived in Concord since 1974, and I went to Riverside High School in the 60s. I know what Concord used to be, and I know what Prouty Road used to be and all that. I know what Morley Road used to be. And I understand that, but times change, we all know that, and communities change, and Concord has tried to do it, and I think has successfully done it in a very effective way. You can argue, I don't want that behind my house, or I don't want that on the next street over, but everything is carefully done to a zoning plan that we have in place, most of which is residential. No, it's not 20-acre residential, it's not farms anymore, but it's residential, and it's larger residential than most communities in Lake County. So we've had that, and we, as a zoning board, we try to make sure that we comply with those requirements. We're very little commercial. We get complaints about the commercial section, whether we want to talk about drug mart, but those areas are set aside for commercial development, and always have been, and we make sure that whoever goes in there commercially complies with the regulations. Same with housing. We make sure that whatever residential units go in there, they all comply with the zoning requirements. Having said that, in the comprehensive plan, one of the things we looked at is the aging population of the residents of Concord. Do we want people, as they get to be older and retired, do we want them to leave our community and go live somewhere else? Or do we want them to have an ability to stay in our community and utilize our businesses here in Concord? So we need to have more than one type of housing in Concord Township. So the idea of cluster homes is kind of a compromise, or condominiums. Certainly apartments are an option, but we don't like those generally, and we don't have many of those. But there need to be, according to the comprehensive plan, different alternative housing, so that when someone is tired of taking care of their 2-acre lot, let's say, I'm tired of maintaining that, but I don't want to leave Concord. What are my choices? Where do I go? Where do I go to stay in this community? And the comprehensive plan said, well, if we have alternate housing choices, then we can retain those people who actually want to stay in this township. They want to stay here because they like Concord Township. I've seen Concord change just like you all have. I've seen it all. And I still love it here. I think this is a great community. And I think you all think that too, or you wouldn't live here. It's going to change. We're told that somewhere down the road, build out in Concord Township, we could have 40,000 people. I've heard that number quoted. That's way out in the future, but it's going to come someday. We know that. It's a desirable area. And with that comes traffic. We talk about another 20 cars, another 40 cars. I don't know what the traffic count is on Prouty Road, but I drive Prouty Road 5 times a week. And I can honestly say I've had 0 problems. And I run into a couple cars at the intersection of Prouty and Auburn, but I've never seen an accident there. I personally have never seen an accident. Doesn't mean there haven't been any, okay? But I drive Auburn Road, I drive all these streets. And from my perspective, just understand that adding, whether we add 40 new houses, 80 new cars, or whether we add 60 new houses and 120, 40 more cars in the course of a day on Prouty Road is probably not going to make a lot of difference. I'm sure there are hundreds, if not thousands, of cars that go down that road every day. I don't know what the traffic count would be. Do we even have an idea?
I don't
Prouty?
know that number off the top of my
Yeah,
head. I'm
Prouty,
sure the county
Morley.
engineer does have that.
I mean, I live close to Morley Road. Traffic is going by there all of the time. And sometimes I have to wait to get out of my street. That wasn't the case when I moved in 25 years ago, but it's the case now, and I deal with it. But that's what we, as a zoning board, have to consider, is that, all of these factors have to come together and still keep this community desirable where we all want to live here. So that's what we face up here. Andy, comments?
I just wish you would have came in with an R1 plan. Would have been easy. We wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
Been done.
Wasn't the first meeting supposed to be a vote?
No.
The very first one was.
Well,
how it was.
we extended it. It was a public hearing, and we extended the public hearing.
Are you
At the
voting
request,
tonight?
at the request, huh?
Are you voting tonight?
That's the intent.
Yeah, I just wish you would have come in with an R1 plan and we wouldn't even be here right now having this discussion. If you'd have just came in with an R1 proposal, he would have put in what he wanted and would have been done with it, and, it would be over. I don't see anything in this proposal that's attractive to me. I mean, I think it's, the density is a major issue, and the location is a problem, and I just don't see anything, I don't see too many redeeming qualities in this proposal for the township and the residents that would be affected. I think that, anybody that lives in the township knows, what the intersection at Prouty and Morley is like, and what the 4-way stop is at Auburn Road and Prouty, and what kind of traffic issues we deal with. I mean, I've lived in that part of the township 30 plus years, and I know what we deal with on a regular basis, and it's not good. Pardon me?
Are we still open
Yeah.
public?
Mhm.
Can I restate something?
Yes.
Mike Hammer, 6980 Auburn Road. And Rich, according to you, we're not anti-development.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't say you are. I just
No,
hear comments.
I think I'm speaking for everybody.
Well,
What we're stating is, you can develop your land, but please do it as R1 what it is.
mhm.
that density,
No, I understand.
that's just
What I'm
crazy.
saying is, as a board, we hear, not just tonight, but we hear all the time.
No, I get it.
Now that I'm in Concord, close the door. That's what we hear, and we can't do that,
No,
just so you understand.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying just, you know,
We're
yeah.
not trying to say, we want development, we understand we're being, but we don't wanna be a mentor. We're a township. Right. We moved
Understand.
here because we like the rural.
We understand that.
Area. I don't wanna be a mentor.
I understand. Okay, I would like to say one thing, though. I can't see how we can approve an R3 without the sewer access, because you bring up a good point. Without that sewer, I know you're working on that, but it's not there. And the requirement is you have to have public water and public sewer, and until there's a signed document, we couldn't even, I don't see how we could even consider that.
Can I finish now?
Yeah, oh, I thought you were. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but that's okay. So, like I said, I think that as residents in this area, long-term residents, you know, people that have been here for years, you know, there isn't any comments that were made that were reasonable that I could disagree with. I mean, I think that, you know, there was a lot of genuinely good points made. And, yeah, I think that this proposal as it sits right now is not what I would like to see come in front of the board. And, you know, I wish that there would have been just an R1 proposal and it could have been developed and we could have moved on. But unfortunately, that's a property owner's right to bring proposals or to bring requests for zoning changes in front of us, and it's our responsibility to hear what they have to say. And if they make a compelling argument, and the people that live in the community are not opposed to it, then it's something we have to take into consideration. If they don't make a compelling argument and there's a lot of opposition to it, I think it makes a pretty simple, you know, decision process for us. You know, despite what some people may think, I think we're pretty well versed in the zoning code and the zoning text and what can and can't happen and what happens if certain things are zoned. So I think that, you know, you can rest easy that we understand the ramifications of what our decisions are, and we understand what the ramifications of, you know, any zoning changes that we recommend up to the trustees. And, you know, we don't take any of these decisions lightly. You know, we give them some pretty serious consideration. This has been in front of us for a few months now. And, you know, I think that I'd like to put this to bed just as well as everybody else. So that's my thoughts.
Okay. Anybody else up here?
I would just say ditto to everything that's been brought up here with the board, so I don't want to reiterate everything again. So I understand where you're coming from. I've lived here since the early 70s myself. Matter of fact, I'm the oldest board member on this board, been here the longest, so I've heard everything. And I understand where you're coming from. People that come from the city out here, they love it, like I did. And the thing with this, you can't, like Andy says, you can't close the door. You know, want to give everybody the opportunity. And also developers have the opportunity to do what they want to do too, because that's what they do. But I understand where you're coming from. Every day, I understand where you're coming from. And as much as I know I've been on the comprehensive plan with Vanessa, years when we adopted this many years ago, so I know we had the township at heart when we did that. And the stuff we have. Is it up for change? Everything can change as time changes. But rest assured, as long as I'm on this board, I'm looking out for everybody's interest. The developer and the township residents. So.
Okay, thank you. Before I close the public hearing, Mr. Victor, any comments to any of this?
I don't know if everyone realizes on the R1 zoning that you can, anybody could build an outbuilding within 10 feet of your property line. So you could have more, you can have the house and another outbuilding within 10 feet of the back property lines. So you're gonna see more roofs than if someone wanted to do that.
That's true.
So, and with the R3, we have a 50-foot buffer to the property lines. So,
But there wouldn't be anything that would stop you from putting a buffer in as an R1 either. as a developer, if you wanted to consider your neighbors and everything else, I mean, I would think that you would have the option, I mean, to forfeit some of your additional density to a buffer. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't do that. It's not against the R1 zoning to do that, right?
Yeah, no.
So, it's just a
Okay.
thought.
Right.
If somebody building up on my property, I gotta just worry about one roof, not 60 or 40. And I would rather.
Stop
You have to stop
the comments from the audience, really.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Thanks.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
The public hearing is now closed. I guess at this point, we can call for a vote.
You guys ready for a vote, or do you have any other discussion?
Anybody have any further
before?
comment? I
No,
think
it would not be from the public. This
I
would
know,
be
but I
comments.
don't think anybody here had, anybody have anything else?
Well, other than we should have 30 days actually to make our decision, so we don't have to make it tonight if we don't want to. That's all I'm saying. So, do whatever the members would like to do. I'll do what the members would like to do. Make a decision tonight.
Let's vote.
Vote tonight?
Let's vote.
Yeah, might as well.
We need a motion.
Okay, we'll vote.
Do we, wanna, can someone have, entertain a motion?
Yes, we have to entertain a motion.
Yeah. Right?
You gonna do it or you want me to do
You
it?
can do it.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, at the beginning, we have to, it would be.
You have to do it in the
Has to be in a
positive.
positive.
In the positive.
In
vote.
the affirmative, correct?
Affirmative.
And then
Yes.
I make a motion that we make a motion in the affirmative for the zoning amendment application 0719-2 by Ralph Victor Construction Incorporated, requesting a zoning map amendment from the current zoning district of R1 residential to R3 residential.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Reppert,
No.
Ms. Jamasek,
No.
Mr. Peterson,
Given that there's no sewer access, no.
Mr. Lingenfelter,
No.
and Mr. Schindler.
No.
So,
So what will happen then is we will certify the recommendation to the trustees, who will then schedule their subsequent public
Right.
hearing, and there'll be public notice for that hearing as well.
Yeah, there, just so everybody knows, there will be another public hearing, you know, in front of the trustees, so, you know, if you want to make sure that you want to attend or whatever, then make sure you become aware of when that proposal will be in front of them, so, but there will be another public hearing.
And don't forget, they can overrule us. And they can vote in favor, so you better be there.
trustees can overrule us, but you're welcome to stay for the rest of the agenda, but you're welcome to leave if you wish.
Oh, it's really exciting.
Mass access. Do we have any zoning?
Really?
2 acre minimum?
I can't get on that, I can't get on that train.
Not everywhere, but I think we need,
When was this, when was this?
that's not the best, but they're on the comprehensive plan. And a nice little rate for a single family home.
Do we have any zoning with 2 acres min?
Yeah. Is it 2 or more? Which is the zoning 2 acre minimum?
That's 5.
R5.
That's 5.
R5?
We don't have R5.
Look at the chart.
We have an R5. Should have.
You're right, we don't have R5.
There's 5.
So we have R6.
R8, rural residential.
Yeah. And what's R8 called for? Right here on my book. You know, you can have an adult family home Yeah, any adult family home there in R1.
Brought up at the next trustee meeting.
I'll let you know after. Reach out to me after. We're still in the middle of the meeting, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. To continue on with our agenda for the evening, find my notes.
Is that true, the R1 could have an adult?
Okay, look in your chart. Okay, item 2 on the agenda is potential zoning text amendments for 2020. Heather, you want to fill us in on that?
Oh, sure. Hi.
Hi.
So, how's everybody doing?
State your name.
Yeah.
So, as you know, part of the zoning inspector job is coming back to you guys with some maybe potential updates or tweaks to the zoning code, you know, as we're enforcing it and as things are. Marty, could you close the door? As we're enforcing it and as we're seeing things, topics come up in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals over and over again, there might be some reasons why things aren't working in the code. So I kind of had a couple topics that maybe we could start looking at in 2020. If we don't have to make a decision tonight on any of those, I didn't do a lot of work on them other than just coming up with this, rough list. And I know in the past, specifically, we talked about sign regulations. We did a comprehensive update in 14, so we're pretty good, but there was recent case law that talked about content neutrality and whether or not, if you're regulating a sign based on its message, you could be subject to strict scrutiny with the courts. So I definitely know there are some areas in the sign resolution, specifically in regards to some temporary signs that we regulate a little bit differently depending on what the message is. So I think that we should spend some work sessions possibly on that this year. And with that, making sure that we're only regulating the size of the sign, the location, and not what the message of the sign says. In doing that, we'd probably reach out to some sign companies and to some local businesses to find out, how much signage they need or want, and time frames, and is the 45 days that we currently have in there working for the businesses. So that's one of the items. Another item would be in our parking section of the code. I think we need to clarify some of the screening requirements that we have in place for the utility trailers. It's clearly written that we require like campers and RVs to be screened from adjacent property owners, but I believe the intent of the regulation initially was to also require those trailers to be screened, but the wording is a little vague, so I'm thinking that we could tweak that. And also, we currently have a driveway setback in place on residential lots from side lot lines, and I think it might behoove us to have a setback from the rear lot line, and as well as far as driveways, maybe even from front yard setbacks when we have turnarounds, when people have turnarounds on their drive. That's just something else that we could look at. I don't know that we need that one in particular, but under the commercial and industrial district sections 22, we have a requirement that talks about dumpster enclosures, and you have to have the 3 solid walls and the gate closing, and it has to match, the building. But we don't have a requirement that it actually has to be constructed upon like a concrete pad. So there's an opportunity maybe there to make that clear in the zoning that you can't just put on the grass. Most people wouldn't do that, but there are areas where there have been times where that's come up where someone suggested they're just going to, roll the dumpster onto the grass and, leave it there in perpetuity. So, the other thing, and this is one that I've seen several variance requests just in the 5 years that I've been with the township, and it has to do with the number of accessory buildings on a residential lot when you're less than 2 acres in size. So as you know, if you're less than 2 acres in an R1 district, you're allowed to have one. Just one. So if you already have a freestanding detached garage because you have no attached garage, you can't even have a shed. So we've seen several of those requests in front of the board. I haven't run any reports to give you like statistics on how many and what size and everything, but I definitely think it might be an area that we can look at where maybe when you're under 2 acres, you could have 2, maybe a combined total of 1,024 square feet, or, one could be up to a certain size and one could be smaller, one with the intent of a garage or barn and the other with more of like a little storage shed. But as of right now, it's a flat one. So that's kind of like my short list on.
No, that's actually good, those are good fill-ins each month. We work on them as we have the time available. Those,
Mhm.
when we get it done over the course of the year. It's a good
Okay.
idea. I'm all for that.
I mean, I don't
Do
know if
we define storage and barns? Like
No, we
sheds
just,
or-
basically, we define an
Square
accessory
footage.
building. We don't make a different, you know.
But I mean, we don't,
No,
I mean,
I'm just using
I could
different
look it
terms,
up,
like,
but-
people, yeah. So we could allow 2 accessory buildings, one being a certain size and one being another certain size, or maybe the combined total not to exceed the maximum, you know, square footage that we already have in place. And maybe there, you know, distance between accessory buildings, we don't have any distance requirement between buildings. I believe Lake County Building Department does. Maybe that's something that we would just mirror and put into the code, so you're not getting property owners that are going to build buildings, you know, a foot apart that could potentially be hazardous.
Okay.
So
Very
there's
good.
a couple other things, you know, with those different ones. that
Yeah,
we could-
let's
we
work
could,
those into
you
our
know,
agendas.
Any
was-
thoughts on any of those, or
No,
questions
no.
about why I'm suggesting it or anything? or-
I think that
They're good
they're
points.
good ideas.
They
Okay.
are.
Okay,
There was
I like
another,
the accessory building issue.
I do too.
yeah.
I like the accessory building issue, because you know, where I'm at, you know, you have a storage barn, and then that's pretty much it. And if you wanted to do anything else, even if it was very small scale,
Mm-hmm,
you know, you can't.
right.
You know, so it would be nice to be able to have some options. I think, I like the idea of square footage.
Yeah.
You know, maybe have a square footage maximum that would allow for a reasonably sized storage shed and maybe some other small building, or whatever, you know, would be used for, but I mean, it's something that I think giving a total square footage would be a good way to approach that. And it gives them an option as to what they could put in, or how they would, you know, how they would use it, versus saying, we're gonna allow you 2 buildings, you know, not to exceed so many square feet or whatever. You gotta basically just say, here, you got so many square feet of accessory buildings, and make sure that it you know, you gotta keep it in perspective to a half-acre lot or whatever, you know, it's gotta be.
So far from the property.
Yeah, it's
Right,
gotta-
and
yeah,
maybe
it's
there's
gotta-
some other tweaks that need to go along with it. Maybe instead of looking at the 2-acre threshold, maybe there should be different allowances for smaller lots versus 1
Right.
acre versus 2 acres, so it
Right.
could turn into a little bit more, yeah. Because if you're on a half-acre lot,
You're
and
really
somebody
gonna have
puts
two,
a 1,000
right.
square foot accessory building, plus, you know, your 3,000 square foot ranch, you've almost got the whole entire lot covered in, you know,
Buildings.
impervious surface area where you've got no stormwater anymore. You know, so, yeah, maybe we need to look at that too, so, okay,
Good stuff.
Okay, good idea.
all right.
there should be
Okay,
another,
item 3 on our agenda is the approval of
can I make
the,
a comment?
oh, I'm sorry.
We still didn't address, like, the letter we got from the planning commission about the senior citizens, remember? Where it indicated that we should look at senior housing standards and
Yeah.
determine. I
Right.
think that should be looked at,
Oh,
because
yeah,
this is gonna.
right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, just on the,
Put
coming
that on
off
the
that
list, yeah.
public hearing that was going to
Yeah,
pitch the
please.
independent living, that, you're right, you're correct, yeah. We
Good
could
point.
add, you know, looking at independent living type facilities, is that appropriate in Concord, and if so, where, and,
Especially now, we're talking about the generation becoming older
yeah.
in Concord, and people don't wanna leave, like we talked about.
Right.
So
We
they,
talked about that, if you remember, a couple years ago.
Yeah,
We
we
did
did.
some work, we did a bunch of research on it, and then,
it just,
we got feedback from legal that we shouldn't create a zoning district that was specifically for a certain demographic.
Yeah.
But I'll add that to the list so we can see what we can do
Have a
with that.
discussion,
That's-
yeah, please,
That's gonna
have-
be very challenging
yeah,
to try to,
I'm sure it will
that's
be.
gonna require a lot more, you know, public input and some other meetings, maybe outside of just a regular zoning commission work session.
Yeah, because especially nowadays, everything that you try to do, that you're prejudiced, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if the senior citizens are out there, and we're not looking at their well-being too, we're gonna be, quote, prejudiced against senior citizens. It's a shame we're getting into an area that has such a fine line, but it is something that they brought up as a good point.
Yeah.
We should look at and see what we can do,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
Okay, item 3, I'll have the December 3rd, 2019 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we have accept the minutes as written.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Sue, second. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
One
Okay,
year.
one abstention. So the minutes are approved. Item 4 would be correspondence reports from any of the zoning commission members. Hiram, anything?
Nothing.
Sue?
No?
I had one email that I sent over to Heather. A lady thinking of moving into Concord did animal rehabilitation. She asked me about, could she have pens where these animals have to go before they can be released into the wild? I had no idea, so I deferred that one to Heather. Would that be something that would be in the,
I'm still working on that one.
it's a little different, you know?
Yeah. I did respond to her, told her that I'm checking with
Okay,
Township
good.
Legal Counsel on the matter,
Okay.
trying to wrap my interpretation on whether or not that's a business use versus,
Yeah.
some other type of use, or whether or
Okay.
not those are buildings or cages or what they are, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Like a
haven't
rescue?
given her.
Well, when you rehab an animal, I guess, she was talking rabbits and things like that, before you can release them into the wild, you have to put them in a pen apparently, in your yard and kind of acclimate them to the outdoors. And then for 15 days or something, and then you can release them. And she asked me if we allow those pens and how many could she have, and heck, I don't know, so.
If you guys watch public TV, it's on every Saturday. There's a woman that does that. And you should watch it. I've watched it over the months. It's interesting.
How many pens does she have?
Well, for her, the thing of it is, it depends on the animal. So they have cages where they can bring in the birds, that have been hurt, wings damaged or something. For example, deer, those that have been left and mothers haven't come back.
Interesting.
So she has an area on her property. She has a big property, but it's a barn that's set up in cages that are set up differently depending on what the animal is. And they bring them back. They take it to a veterinarian, make sure it's being treated properly. She raises it for how long it takes. The month before they feel it's well, they send them back into the wild. And I've watched this several times when you watch them go with releasing them. It brings a tear to your eye. What she does this with a group of volunteers. And it's something that was very interesting to see. When you brought that up, I thought that's exactly from these people. And it's on every Saturday that we watch it occasionally, so, yeah, it's,
Okay.
That'd be great.
Andy, any correspondence?
No.
You? Frank, did you have any?
That'd be
None.
good for that.
Okay. We do have a time here for audience participation, and those that would come on forward. Yes.
Thank you. I just would like to echo that I think it would be a great idea to look at some of the senior housing options in Concord and some of the zoning, and make sure that when you do that in the comprehensive plan, there's a lot of consideration about, whether or not it should be included in R3 or in another section. But we really need to look and decide if it's appropriate and what some of the impacts are, other than just zoning, but also it includes, I think it's on page 43, the facilities may impact or displace other uses, potential tax base implications, impact on lots of different areas and future zoning amendments, lots of different things. So when you look at aging in place versus some of the other kinds of things, even single-family homes for people who want to downsize, whether or not that's actually true. What is the current housing stock that you have? How much do you have of it? Here in Concord, is there already a significant amount? We say we need more, but are there data and statistics to show that we really need more? People are aging, but they may not want to be going into that kind of thing. So how much do we have and how much do we really need, as well as some of the other things? I'd really appreciate you looking into all of that, and I'm happy to be there and assist if you need it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you're right, because we have it.
From the senior.
All 5 senior citizen community district.
Okay.
It was put together and adapted on 6 May 2015. sorry about that. Thank you.
All right, any other audience participation? Apparently not. So our next meeting then will be February 4th, 2020. And with that, we'll close the meeting.
Adjourn.